I'm Haley Stevens. I am running to be your next Congresswoman for Michigan's 11th District. I launched this campaign a year ago very intentionally because I figured we had one asset, which was time, and we needed that to move this mountain of unseating Dave Trott. I'm a daughter of Oakland County. I spend a lot of time down this way, so the garage and this high school and the people who live here are certainly really important to me. My background, and I was going to say this, we all have a lot in common, just kind of going around in circles, so thank you for sharing your thoughts. But just to give you a little bit about me and then some exchanging is I have had the privilege of serving in federal government before. Right out of college, served as a field organizer for the Michigan Democratic Party. I grew up in Oakland County, but they sent me out to Grand Rapids. We were running against a DeVos that year, and we showed him who was boss, which was great. I went on and worked on the presidential races, and we won in 2008. And I, as this kid from Michigan, found myself sitting on President Obama's transition from when you win the election to when you go in the White House. But all I could think about was home. All I could think about was what was happening in Michigan because our economy was bottoming out. And I thought, if I'm going to do one thing in this administration, if I'm going to serve, I'm going to do something for Michigan. And so I put up my hand and I asked to serve with Steve Rantner and Ron Bloom, who were leading the U.S. Auto Rescue, which is the initiative responsible for saving General Motors and Chrysler and 200,000 Michigan jobs. I have, since that experience, worked in a public-private partnership capacity. I have managed multi-million-dollar federally funded portfolios focused on STEM education, workforce development, job training, and I care a lot about the economy and fiscal responsibility. So for my two guys here who were talking about the debt, my ask to all of you, because coming to this meeting shows me one thing, that you guys are part of the coalition of the willing. Mm-hmm. And I would say this to you, which is, don't let people tell you, oh, I'm socially liberal but fiscally conservative. That's why I vote Republican. Because that part of the party has left you a long time ago. I, too, am gravely concerned about a $1.5 trillion deficit. That does what? It bankrupts our communities. It bankrupts our schools. It bankrupts our people. It disadvantages us when we're trying to say, gosh, we want to do an infrastructure bill to fix our roads. And what are these things an example of? They're an example of dysfunctional government. And so I'm really proud to have been, the first candidate in the race. I know we got a lot of great people and I love them all. But for me, it was a leadership moment. And it was a leadership moment based on my background in public service and a calling that I had to serve. And there was one headline that was ringing out in July of 2017. And I know a lot of people don't like to talk about this, but I think it's pretty profound. And it was, Trot Challenger outraises nearly everyone. And I know we don't like to talk about fundraising, but you know what that meant? That meant that my campaign that was in place when they voted to repeal health care, we brought in a flood of people. It was a grassroots groundswell. And so one of my commitments has been, because I get asked this a lot on the campaign trail, what committee do you want to serve on? And as a freshman member of Congress, hopefully in a Democratic Congress, is I want to sit on the House Education and Workforce Committee. Because that committee, I believe, I can do the most good for Michigan. And I can hold a lot of people, including Betsy DeVos, accountable. And I can support our public schools and I can support our teachers. And Joe, you brought up a good question, which was a point, which is how are we going to take on, because we know they're putting out a Republican. We know it's not just an open seat where no Republican is going to be there. Someone is going to get nominated. And how I believe and why I believe I am the candidate to take on that Republican nominee is because I am a woman in manufacturing. I speak the language of this district. I have worked with dozens of manufacturers here on job training, on export assistance, on technology transfer, and I'm also not afraid to be bold. So when you talk about these principles of inclusion and bigotry and hatred, going around here, who here is represented by State Senator Colbeck? Do I have any Plymouth Canton people here? So I called for Colbeck to step down today because Colbeck has issued a bigotry claim, and he's done this before, but he's now a candidate for governor. And he's saying all this anti-Muslim rhetoric. And it's not just enough to condone and move on. What we need to do is say there is no place for that type of hatred. And last time I checked, the GOP is in charge. Right? The GOP is in charge. The GOP.
Oh, yeah.
They're in charge.
Yeah.
I mean, the GOP runs the governorship in Michigan, they run the state house and state senate, they run the White House, and they run the House of Representatives and the Senate. They are in full capability to shut things down like this. And frankly, we need to hold them culpable for being so freaking dysfunctional. No one here brought up guns, but I'll bring it up. And I know some of you brought up healthcare, which is a deep issue, a personal topic to me as well. You know, it's irresponsibility. Let's repeal healthcare, but have no plan. Let's forget or look aside from doing gun safety legislation when people are scared. You know, no one's saying take all the guns away, but we're talking about common sense. And that has been my background. That is where I have led on. That is where I've delivered. And lastly, I know how to make DC work for Michigan. I did that on the auto rescue. I did that in manufacturing policy. And my last White House appointment was in the Economic Development Administration, a $300 million agency where, Donald Trump and the Republicans always say, let's get rid of it. But that $300 million agency is a job-creating agency. And most of the dollars that are spent on grant programs that go into workforce development or, amelioration for economic downturn, they create or retain jobs. It's almost 1 to 7 in terms of some of the jobs created or retained. And that's something that the Trump administration is talking about getting rid of, but it's a place where I have served and I know how to make those grants come into our state. And with the Department of Transportation, you better believe I'm going to be the first person on the phone saying, where's our money? Because we're paying taxes, but we're not seeing the results of it.
Question?
So, yeah, please.
How are you going to make up the difference between this